Let's begin our discussion today by talking about what a factor is. A factor is a number that, when multiplied with another number, you get a product. For example, factors of 15 include 1 and 15, because 1 times 15 is 15, and 3 and 5, because 3 times 5 is 15. Therefore, 1, 15, 3, and 5 are all factors of 15. Because from 1 and 15, you get 15, and from 3 and 5, you get 15 when multiplied. Let's look at 60. Stop and think about what factors of 60 may be. Let's begin. 1 times 60 is 60. 2 times 30 is 60. Does 3 go into 60? Well, to figure that out, just do 60 divided by 3, and you get 20. So 3 times 20 is 60. We've also got 4 times 15 is 60. We've got 5 times 12 is 60. We've got 6 times 10 is 60. Let's try 7. If I put 7 into my calculator, 60 divided by 7, I get a massive decimal. So 7 does not work. It has to be a whole number. What about 8? 60 divided by 8. That doesn't work either. I get 7.5. What about 9? 60 divided by 9. Again, massive decimal. And what's next? Well, now we're back to 10, but we already know 10's a factor, because 10 times 6 is 60. So we have all of our factors listed out. Now what we need to do is we need to look at the greatest one that they have in common. A common factor is just a factor that two numbers have in common. For example, 3 and 3 are common factors, 1 and 1 are common factors, 15 and 15 are common factors, and 5 and 5 are common factors. The greatest common factor here will be 15, because 15 is the biggest number that we can find in both lists. So the greatest common factor is 15. What happens when you need to find the greatest common factor for three numbers? Well, it's the same process. Let's list the factors of 3, 1 and 3. That's all. 2 does not go into 3, give us a whole number. So let's look at 36. We've got 1 and 36. We've got 2 and 18. We've got 3 and 12. We've got 4 and 9. 5 does not go, but 6 gives us 6. 6 times 6 is 36. So 1 times 36 is 36. 2 times 18 is 36. 3 times 12 is 36, and so on. And then let's look at 99. With 99, we have 1 and 99. We have 3 and 33, and we have 9 and 11. So just looking at these lists, can you tell me which one is the greatest common factor? What is the biggest number in both lists? The correct answer would be 3. 3 is the greatest number in this list. 3 is also in this list, and it is also in this list. So the greatest common factor in our bottom problem is 3. That's all well and good, but what if you have to find the GCF of variables? Well, remember how I said that a factor is just a number that you multiply with another number and it becomes a product? Well, x squared just means x times x. So x's are the factors here, and x squared is the product. So you have found the factors of x squared. The factors are just x times x. What about x to the sixth? X times x times x times x times x times x. 6 times, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have the greatest common factor between x times x and x times x times x times x times x times x. Well, they all have x in common, for sure, but they have more than just one x in common. They actually have two x's in common. Now we can't go above 2x's because this x squared only has 2. But the way that we can rewrite this is the greatest common factor is just x times x. It's just x times x. This is the greatest common factor. It's what they have in common. And the way that we rewrite that is, well, x times x is x squared. So the greatest common factor between x squared and x to the sixth is actually x squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and put numbers and letters back together. We have 4x and 20x cubed. The way that I like to solve problems with numbers and letters together is I like to have our numbers over here and find the GCF between the numbers, and our letters over here and find the GCF between the letters. So let's do the numbers first. We have 1 and 4, factors of 4, and 2 and 2. Then for 20, we have 1 and 20. We have 2 and 10. We have 4 and 5. So the greatest common factor between our numbers, I can already see it, it's 4. Because 4 is the biggest number that they both share. Now they do both share a 2, but they both share a 4, and we're just looking for the greatest one. All right, let's take a look at our variables. So we have 1x here, and we have x times x times x here. Well, the greatest common factor would just be the x. And we can only take one of them because there's only one x here. So we got to put it all back together now. From over here we get a 4, and from over here we get an x, and we find that our greatest common factor is in fact 4x. Alrighty, so now putting everything we learned together, let's look at some expressions and factor out the GCF. In case you're wondering, GCF just means greatest common factor. So what I like to do is I like to look at each term. By the way, the term is just what's in between the pluses and minuses. So this is a term, and this is a term. So I like to look at both terms and write out my factors. So the first term is x squared, which is x times x. The second term is just x. Now you tell me, what do they have in common? And the answer is just 1x. This term, the second term here, the one after the plus, it's x to the power of 1. It only has 1x. So when we factor out the GCF, we have to take an x out because that's the greatest common factor. And then what's left? Well, it's x squared over x. X squared over x is just x. And then plus x over x. Well, x over x is just 1. So when we factor an x out of this, we take an x to the front, and then we have x squared divided by x, which is just x. And then x divided by x, which is just 1. So we took an x away from this first term, and we took an x away from the second term. All right, let's take a look at this next one and write out our three terms. So we have 6x squared. So 6 and x squared. We have 3x, 3 and x, and we have 12, negative 12. All right, so our factors of 6 include 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6. Our factors of x squared are just x times x. Our factors of 3 include 1 and 3, and that's it. And then, of course, we have an x. And our final factor is that 12, which is 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. By the way, it is a negative 12, so one of these would have to be negative. However, I'm not too concerned about that because it says factor out the greatest common factor. And if you look at our middle problem here, not all of them are negative. So we're not going to factor a negative number out. Also, we're not going to factor an x out. The reason we're not going to factor an x out is not all three terms have an x in common. Look at that minus 12. Does it have an x? The answer is no. So because that minus 12 has no x, we cannot take an x out. So, what numbers do they all have in common? Well, there is one. See how this 6 has 2 times 3? This 3 is 1 times 3, and this 12 is 3 times 4? All three of my terms have a 3 as a factor. So when I rewrite it, I am going to take a 3 out, take a 3 out, and we're going to be left with 6 divided by 3 is 2x squared. 3 divided by 3, just x is left, and negative 12 divided by 3, minus 4. And that would be what we look like after we factor out our greatest common factor. Okay, that's great, but what if the variables are different? We have an x here and a z here. Well, x and z can be anything, but they're not the same. So they are not a common factor. X and z here are not common factors. They're not the same variable. Let's take a look at our numbers, 12 and 39. Well, 12, that goes into 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. What about 39? Let's take a look at 39. Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be 1 and 39, right? So let's see, 39. We've got 1 and 39. 2 won't work because it's odd. Let's see, 39 divided by 3. Okay, that's 13. 3 and 13. Let's see, 39 divided by 4. That doesn't work. 39 divided by 5. That doesn't work. 39 divided by 6. I'm just doing this in my calculator to see if it works. And as it would turn out, I'm at 8 now. It's still not working. I'm getting decimals. That's how I know it's not working for my answer. Once I get to 13, I'll know for sure it's not working, but it's not looking good. Let's see, 11, 39 divided by 12, and 39 divided by 13. And I'm back to here, back to the 3 and 13, so I have to stop. So the biggest number that they have in common would just be 3. And of course, when I rewrite this, I take a 3 out. Take a 3 out. And we have a 4 here because 12 divided by 3 is 4. That x was not taken out. Plus, what did we say happened when we took a 3 out of 39? Well, it's 3 times 13, so 13 is left here. And a z. And that concludes the video for today. Please like it if you got some help, and thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your studies, guys.